I've talked at length about American, Soviet, and even British tanks on this channel thus far, but I felt it was time to revisit some German tanks once again. There's no shortage of discussion and information on the multitude of combat vehicles used by them during the Second World War. Nevertheless, I hope my own thoughts can provide something enjoyable to watch. There isn't any underlying theme this time, simply a selection of different tanks and other armored fighting vehicles used by the German army. First on the list is one the community has clamored for since the start of ground forces. The Stug 4 was set to be featured in the German tree from the get-go, but in the years since has never seen the light of day. While it shares some aspects with its predecessor the Stug 3, and spiritual successor the Panzer IV, the Stug 4 is an iconic vehicle in its own right and deserves to be represented in the game. The history of the Stug 4 stems from Germany's losing position in the back half of the war. Alket, the exclusive producer of the Stug 3, suffered catastrophic damage during an Allied bombing raid, reducing production overnight to almost nothing. As a result, Germany had to seek out other sources for its widely produced casemate tank destroyers. The Stug 4 was one such result, one other being the cheaply produced Panzer 38T. Stug 3 superstructures were mounted on the hulls of Panzer IVs, which were lighter and cheaper to produce than the Panzer IV. These superstructures also featured the later style of gun mantlet, which was curved instead of flat and boxy. Just over 1,000 were produced over the series of the war. The performance of the Stug 4 wouldn't be anything surprising, just a decently mobile casemate in a moderately armored hull. Another variant of an existing vehicle is the Martyr III-M. This is the final model of the Martyr III series of tank destroyers, based on the Panzer 38T. While armed with the same Pak-40, the 3M had a better silhouette, sloped armor, and an improved fighting compartment, as the engine was no longer situated at the rear of the tank where the crew would otherwise sit. The compartment was enclosed from the rear, though still open top, and the machine gun position was eliminated to improve overall combat effectiveness. The tank could carry 27 rounds of ammunition in total. Martyr 3M would be an enjoyable addition for players who enjoy the light tank destroyer playstyle. Another highly sought addition is the Panzer II or Lux, the last design of its family. In 1940, Germany sought to develop a new light reconnaissance tank, and the Daimler-Benz and MAN companies began development. This tank would be categorized as the development of the earlier Panzer II, but was in reality almost an entirely new design featuring a new engine, armor scheme, turret placement, and interleaving road wheels. By 1942, development and testing was completed, and the Lux was ready for deployment. The Lux featured between 30 to 20 mm of armor around its front and sides, and was armed with a 2 cm KWK-38 autocannon and machine gun. 320 rounds of primary ammunition were stored, and defensive smoke launchers were mounted on the turret. The engine of the Lux had 180 horsepower and could reach speeds up to 60 km per hour. 4 men crewed the tank, and only 100 were produced in total. The German army was never able to make significant use of them, where they were shuffled around to different battalions and used in different configurations, before finally seeing notable action in France in 1944, only to shortly be disbanded and distributed to various other units thereafter. The Lux is a highly desired light tank for Germany, and fits right in with the various scouting vehicles in the tech tree. Before I wrap things up, I'd like to mention one more tank. This one is a bit of a special case, and that is the Panther II. I'm sure veterans of the game know the history of this vehicle, but for those who are confused, there is a Panther II in the game which was removed for being ahistorical. So why am I mentioning this? Because while War Thunder's Panther II is ahistorical, the concept behind it is not. The real Panther II was a development of later Panther tanks, and would serve as the basis for the E-series of tank program, which never saw the light of day. The Panther II program did see many of the changes represented in the game. The front plate was increased to 100mm of armor, and suspension and final drive were based on the Tiger IIs, giving it much better mobility. Great emphasis was placed on the interchangeability of components between the two vehicles. A new Maybach engine was used, giving the Panther II 900 horsepower with an 8-speed transmission, and whose turbo shaft would give it additional horsepower, making the Panther II heavier, but still faster than the original Panther. The biggest change, however, would be the turret. The so-called Schmalturm of the Panther F was actually designed after the Panther II was cancelled, and as far as most historians agree, the real Panther II would have used the same style of turret as the Panther G, giving it the original shape and 75mm gun. All in all, the Panther II would have been faster and better armored, but no more deadly than the Panther G. In my opinion, including this vehicle would be fine, as it uses existing components and isn't physically impossible to build. There are dozens of more potential German tanks to be added to the game, but hopefully these 4 gave you a taste of what may be to come. Let me know in the comments if there are other German tanks you would like to see, and please leave a like and subscribe to help the channel grow and keep up to date on new videos.